beautiful day. Alright, so I'm trying to get these videos a bit shorter. So let's see if I can make this one shorter. What I want to talk about today was about those of us in the industrialized world as opposed to the third world countries, and talk about just something for you to consider. And that is about being grateful yet mindful for our luxuries, our abundance. Now, before I get into it, leave guilt at the door. None of what I'm about to tell you, or if you start to think about these things, should you feel guilty about. Guilt doesn't serve us. It has nothing to do with guilt. What is the system that's been plugging along for a long time, forever, is what it is. And the best we can do is just be aware of what's going on. Be grateful. And by being aware of where our abundance is coming from, our luxuries, in time a natural process will happen where without pressure on yourself, slowly you'll start to easily, without pressure, you'll start to just naturally change things bit by bit. You can't change overnight. There's too much in the system. There's so much in the system that's harming others and harming the planet, and it's the nature of the whole system. You can't just stop it all. It'd be great if we could, but you can't. I mean, if you can find a way to do it, great, but generally, it's a lot on our plate. It's a lot to absorb. I mean, each of us could spend a lifetime just becoming aware of what's really we're unaware of, even as a lot of us become aware for many years of what's going on and keep absorbing the information, the misinformation and what's being hidden from us, everything else, and what's really going on behind the scenes in the system. You could spend a lifetime trying to get to the bottom. So you can't, it's not practical or healthy to put pressure on yourself to just change everything all at once. Baby steps. And the best way is just to be grateful and aware of where our abundance comes from. For example, really, if you look at modern day times, those of us, not rich people, just middle class to poor, what we think of as poor, not third world poor, but just meaning, those of us that struggle to pay bills and maybe are in a bit of debt, that kind of poor, which really isn't poverty at all. But those of us in the industrialized world, so I'm not talking about the rich, we're going to leave them out of this. We're just talking about the rest of us, middle class to poor. The way we live, if you really look at it, we live the way kings used to live. We are living like kings. We just don't realize it. If you think about kings way back, in medieval times, how did they live when it comes to abundance? They could eat anytime they wanted, and if they wanted, they could eat all day long. And if they wanted, they could even overeat and then throw up and go again. Well, isn't that the society we live in? Don't we have people that, we call it an illness, that some people do overeat and then purposely throw up. But for the most part, we can eat all day long if we want. We have all-you-can-eat buffets. They had endless variety of food and abundance brought to them. Isn't that what we have? We can have bananas from the other side of the world, and exotic fruits, and I mean the variety of food we have, is extravagant, even well beyond what they were experiencing. I mean, we're actually way more spoiled than even the kings were. They didn't have access to even what we have access to. Entertainment. They had all this entertainment at the snap of a fingertips. You know, people perform plays for them and dance. Well, isn't that what we have? You know, movies, television, radio, music, entertainment at our fingertips. So I won't get too deep into that, but I'm just saying, if you really look at it, we're living like kings. People don't realize it. So in the modern day, industrialized countries, what people really, a lot of people take for granted, is we're living in these ivory towers, these apartments, these little boxes. But we're living in the ivory towers with our air-conditioned and entertainment and food and really, you know, just everything at our fingertips. And you see a lot of people, the more abundant they are, they take it for granted. They really do. They're just completely complaining about what they have and more focusing on what they don't have, what they want. Just, I want to be rich, I want to be rich. Well, you are rich. Actually, we're all rich, even if you're dirt poor. Just that being on the planet, we're enriched and we don't realize it. Just to be alive, to have breath in your lungs, you know, to smell the air and flowers and listen to the birds. We're so abundant. But just to get back to material, more things I'm talking about. So, and I won't even get into all the ways we're abundant that we take for granted. If you really look around, you know, in your life, you'll see it. So, number one, be grateful. Be really grateful for what we have. And number two, you can also be really grateful the more you're mindful. And this is the big part of what I want to talk about. Not just gratitude, but mindfulness. And again, leave guilt at the door. This is not meant to make you feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty. But we don't want to bury our heads in the sand. If we really want to make a new world, if we really want a natural process of change to happen, when we start changing, our choices start to change, it really just starts with slowly becoming mindful and grateful for what we have, but aware of where it's coming from. And that's what most people put no thought into, where it's coming from. And the fact is, well, let's just start here in Canada. I'm living in this wonderful apartment in Hamilton, Ontario. You know, it's spacious, it's a sunroom, it's lovely, in an old Victorian home. However, I am well aware, and people don't like to think about this, that actually everything comes at a cost. This is the point of this video, is basically just first be aware, mindful of the fact that unfortunately in this system we've created, everything is competition and everything comes at a cost. Nothing you have, pretty much nothing you enjoy, did not come without a cost to the planet or to another human being. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's a fact. Everything you enjoy, your food, your way of life, where you live, even the money system and the credit system is completely based on competition, and it's completely, none of it is free. Even when you have money, if you have lots of money, it came from somebody else. Somebody had to lose it for you to get it. Now, I won't get into all that, but if you really look into the economics, the information, what we really know of the money system, and especially the credit system, and this is why the financial system is crashing, because people have broken it down, and it actually turns out that money itself, just if you have $5 in your pocket, okay, you had to work hard to earn it, but when you really look into it, what it turns out is the way the whole system works is the only way you got that is somebody had to lose it. And the same goes with credit. So I won't get into all that. Feel free to research it. It's true. So everything you have came at a cost to somebody else, and especially the planet. All of our luxuries, and we know we're plundering this planet. Everything you enjoy, your car, your air conditioning, whatever, your products, your food, your freedoms, your what we believe are our freedoms. They're really just temporary luxuries, temporary freedoms, but for now, it all comes at a cost. And again, don't feel guilty. just be aware of it. It's important to be aware of it. Don't bury your head in the sand, because then nothing changes. So I backtrack. So let's get back to just being here in Canada. I love this country. The fact is, some of you might not like what I'm about to say, but it's the absolute truth. I'm enjoying this apartment and the freedoms I have here, my whole life here in Ontario, Canada, because we murdered and committed genocide against the natives that were living here. That is an absolute truth. We can sugarcoat it, we can pretend, well, our ancestors, the only reason I'm enjoying this was because others drove them off the land, they murdered them, committed genocide, and now they're still with us. And we say we embrace them, and there's lots of us Canadians that do embrace them or wish to do something, further. But as a whole, no, they're shoved off and marginalized and shoved into really what is internment camps. We call them reservations. But they live in squalor, and they're left on their own with not a whole lot of choices. We've given them very little choices. So their whole entire culture, way of life has just crumbled. And our ancestors did that. And really they're living as type of internment camps. So, some people Canadians might not like to hear that. But it's true. And if you look anywhere in the world, it's probably the same in your country. There were natives at some time, and if you really look at the history, they brought something very similar happen. Even today, they're doing it even today. Modern business is driving off tribes and committing genocide to keep the system going. So, again, not to feel guilty about it or to harp on it, but be aware of it. Be grateful. I am very grateful for this, and I'm very aware. I wish that wasn't the case. I can't change that. I was born into this. I didn't do it myself, and I wish to make change. I'll do everything I can to change it, and that's the best we can do. But be aware. So just from that level, right from here, just this very land, just the fact that I have this apartment, came at the cost of lives. People were murdered. The culture, the natives, we committed genocide. Basically, almost genocide. I think genocide means completely wiped out. We didn't completely wipe them out, but just about. And I'm not laughing, by the way. I'm not laughing at that. So yeah, it's good to be aware of that. Now, everything else in my life, I'm very aware. And here's the thing: the more we're aware, the big reason behind this is, if you just be grateful, but be aware of where all this is coming from. You'll just find without pressure, this will help you ease into change. So really this is a way to help you transition easily without being guilty or putting too much on your plate, because you'll start to see slowly your choices will change, just on their own, and little bit by bit. You can't do it all overnight. So when it comes to everything we enjoy, it comes at a cost. We're stealing water, pretty much even our water, we're stealing from, if you really look into it, other countries. This is why there's so many third world countries that are impoverished and the land is big, because what we're enjoying in these modern, developed societies, we're taking from other countries. This is what a lot of the wars are actually covering up. They're actually in there to get resources. That's what's happening. That's why wars exist. That's a fact. All the religious and the political mumbo jumbo, which is just fed to us, which is just lies by mainstream media and by the system forever, are just lies. Any wars that have been committed, all of them, if you really do the research and look into it, it's actually resources. It's the powers that be that have been rigging this game and keeping us asleep, and it's been about getting resources, stealing from others, the system of competition, so that the rich can stay in power, the super rich I should say, that keep their power, so that the rest of us can feel abundant enough to stay asleep and really enable them, etc., etc. I don't want to get too deep into that part of it. That's not what this video is about. But everything we enjoy, you know, our gasoline for our cars, you know, people in the, you know, the wars that have been going on where there's oil, and still today, and women and children and people being bombed and everything else. That's where the oil is coming from. Our exotic fruits and vegetables, all this stuff, you know, natives are being driven off their land, entire ecosystems destroyed. We're plundering it. That's all coming because we're plundering these. And a lot of times that's why the other little coups are started in other countries and dictators are supported and given money by other countries that claim this is wrong, but really they're supporting them, and the reason is because that way they get rights to the resources which we enjoy. So the majority of our resources that we enjoy are coming from the suffering of others, and certainly the suffering of the planet. And that's the system that's been rigged. It's the system of competition that we have to change. But first, we have to be the change. And that's not going to happen overnight. And again, leave guilt out of it. Just be mindful. Not meaning dig deep into it, but just, you know, be mindful and the information will come to you on its own. Just be mindful. And say yes. Admit. People have and are in the planet, and animals and the ecosystems are suffering because of what I enjoy. And then slowly you'll start to make choices just naturally, and you'll see your life will improve and you'll start to be the change. You'll start to recycle, although that's just a stopgap method. That's just the beginning of what we need to do. In fact, there's a lot of question whether it's even really what we think it is. But, you know, at the very least, if you're going to buy packaged stuff, at least recycle. Composting, you know, at the very least. So you'll start with things like that. Start being mindful the fact of what's really even what you're putting in your body and what we're putting into the planet. Be mindful what you're flushing down the toilet. The fact is, you know, this is a fact. This isn't even hidden. They admit the companies and the system and the governments that process our water in developed countries admit that currently to date, the way the water is processed, it only processes solids and bacteria. It doesn't process chemicals. And the fact is, a good portion of the population are dumping chemicals constantly, liquid plumber, bleach, etc., etc. All these chemicals, the non-organic or non-biodegradable products still out there are going down into the drain and into our water. So a chemical soup. So if you wonder why things are getting strange on this planet, people are behaving strange, well, the whole system is ignoring is the fact that we're being chemically altered. And in the air and in the water, everywhere. And in the food, the genetically modified food, there's all these chemicals. But so just one, you know, when it comes to the planet, you can be mindful. If you're aware of this, then you'll start to not dump stuff down the drain. You'll rethink it. Even when we take drugs, you know, we're a highly medicated society. It's a big corporations that just, you know, medicate instead of really treat what's naturally happening to us. Really understanding it's just constant medication. So many people are on so many medications. It's not good for us. It's not good for the human development, and it's not good for the planet. And just be aware again that just be aware of what's going on. The fact is that when people are on all these medications and antidepressants and every other kind of drug, a lot of that is being peed out into the water, and it's coming, so you're drinking it. So when you're on all these antidepressant stuff, I'm getting it too a little bit in the water. Now the water's a toughie, you know, there's no real big solution on that right now, but we can start with just being mindful. And then when you get into bottled waters, there's a lot of controversy about that. It's not even really, it's the same water or even not even processed as well as the tap water, depending where you are. You know, etc., etc., etc. And even if you're drinking purely true spring water, if you really start to look into it, even those methods, it's damaging the earth the way they do it. I don't know a lot about it, but I've talked to a few people who have enlightened me. Dylan, thank you for telling me about the drilling. I don't remember all of it. It was a lot of information, but you know, even the way we drill and get water, you know, is damaging. So again, just be aware. Is a good way to start. Aware of what you're doing in your daily practices, and you'll slowly start to make different choices. You're eating, besides the fact that of changing your eating habits for your own self. Again, it also has to do with other animals and organisms and the planet. So if you're not going to stop eating meat or consider stop eating meat because of health reasons, some of us don't even, I didn't give up meat for health reasons because I can pretty much eat anything. I'm just, I'm fine, honestly. But it is a health concern for a lot of people, for the most people. But if not for health, how about the fact that what we know about these animals, they suffer. It's terrible. What, even like chicken. When you eat chicken, you know, even before I gave up meat, which I was leaning towards a long time and tapering off, you know, when I found out what they do with chickens and processed chickens and with KFC, but it's not just KFC, any chicken you have. It's terrible what they do. You find out what they're doing, you know, especially like with the males, chickies just being ground up if they're not female. And anyways, I won't get into it all, but if you look at how animals are treated, so I don't eat meat anymore. That was slowly, again, it wasn't a big sudden step. It was slowly becoming aware and more comfortable with the knowledge of the consequences of other animals suffering, and that's why I gave up meat quite a while back. The one thing I've been intending to, but I hadn't yet, was dairy, and it's just because the fact is that's really what my one vice. That's my one thing that I still have, that I love dairy. It's my favorite food, cheese especially. The fact is, you know, even if organic, but organic's hard to afford, but especially non-organic dairy, those cows, what's being done to them, the drugs that's being put into them, and the massive amounts, you know, if you look at them swelling with it's terrible, the suffering we put them through so we can enjoy our milk and cheese. So I'm just about done with dairy. I'm just tapering. I've slowly been tapering it off, and now I'm really, I went grocery shopping the other day, and for the first time I bought no dairy. I've been tapering off again, not buying a lot, but so I'm giving it up, which is hard because I love dairy. It's the one thing I love. I don't really eat sweets. I don't drink. I don't. So it's the, you know, I don't eat meat. It's my one little thing, but you know, well, I don't like being part of that suffering. So that's why. And it's really not good for you anyways. We really weren't meant to nurse off of other animals our whole lives. You know, all of nature that you nurse as when you're young, and then you stop nursing. We're the only species that continues nursing, and we're nursing off of nursing meat and drinking milk off of other animals. It's not natural. So that's okay. So again, you slowly start to make choices that affect the planet and affect others. And I don't consume. A lot of people start getting rid of it. I never really was much of a consumer, but over the last 10 years I've really been emptying out my apartment. I've still got stuff I want to empty out, and I buy almost nothing. My clothes are ancient, and that's the other thing. Our clothes, everything you buy, especially if you're buying from big corporations, they're plundering from other countries. So keep that in mind. So we can make other choices. We can start, eventually you'll feel moved, or you'll stumble across and attract products that were, you know, say hemp, made of hemp, which is, you know, or made organic or made locally. They'll start to come to you as you start to be mindful. Again, you don't have to just cut off Walmart altogether, but keep in mind when you go to Walmart or anything like that, pretty much every single thing in there is at a major cost to human life, animal life, all of life on planet, ocean. There's a huge cost, and a cost to our future, a threat to our future. So just be mindful of it, and you'll slowly, just naturally want to consume less. And so really I buy nothing. I used to, the one real consuming thing I did, the only consuming thing I really bought myself was movies. But even that now, I stopped moving. I haven't bought movies in a year or two. I've given them most away, and eventually we'll give the rest away probably. And I don't plan on buying any more movies and stuff because I understand the costs, packaging, and the whole thing. There's nothing wrong with movies. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying my personal choice. And it's just freeing too, from a spiritual and emotional, you know, it is really freeing when we stop cluttering our lives with stuff. So you'll slowly start to go that way if you're mindful that when you fill your house up with all these things, you know, first of all, if you're going to buy things, that's fine, but just see where it comes from, or think about where it comes from. And again, as you start to be more mindful, you'll start to attract better choices. You really will. You'll start to just naturally stumble across things that were made in a better way for the planet, you know, handcrafted and organic, etc., etc. So just by being aware, you'll slowly, without any pressure to yourself, you'll just slowly start saying, you know, I think I'm just going to stop this. You know, I think I'm just going to buy this instead. You know, I think I'm just going to, it'll be natural. And you're being the change. And so it's just as simple as that. So be grateful. And don't feel guilty. But just start to, you know, always be grateful. And, you know, for heaven's sakes, don't gripe. And you're living like kings. But be grateful, and then just be mindful. And you can be more grateful by being mindful. I am very grateful, especially knowing the cost of my luxuries. Just while we're on the subject of, just a quick little thing, while we're on the subject of, 27 minutes already. While we're on the subject of being mindful, be mindful of what you're buying. Genetically modified, not good. So here's a quick tip I just learned, and that is, first of all, when you're buying produce especially. Now when you get into non-produce, it gets a little tricky. They shuffle the numbers around. You might have to do more research, or if it in question, just do what I do, just don't buy it. But with produce, it's pretty simple. If you look, here is a regular cucumber. I don't know if you can see that. And so most produce, regular produce, is 4 digits. Now, basically what that means is, 4 digits is what we've been eating our whole lives. We've been rolling our dice. It's pesticides. It's just regular traditional food, which we know now is filled with pesticides, which is why people switch to organic. If you still want or feel you have to eat that, that's fine. You know, we've been eating this way for quite some time, so I think our bodies are adapting in some sense. On the other sense, that could be where a lot of the cancers and everything else is coming from. But, you know, let's leave that up to you. I'm not saying don't eat that, but just be aware when it's 4 digits, and especially when you see a 4, that's just what the regular pesticides, the regular, you know, business as usual kind of produce. Now, organic. So here's the thing I just found out, and this is really important though, because they've done something I think is sneaky, because it's no coincidence. So regular pesticide type, regular traditional farming, 4 digits. Now 5 digits. When you see 5 digits, you're looking for the number at the very end, and they've actually it's one number off from being death to being what you want. So I'll just show you what I mean. This is organic banana. Let me just turn it around. Oh, sorry. Let me do that again. Oh, that's a weird one. Hold on. I didn't notice that. I might have to look into that. To my knowledge, the 9's supposed to be at the end, but it seems to be at the beginning. But it does say organic, so it's probably good, but yeah, that's funny. Anyways, usually it's at the end. What you're looking for is, and a friend just taught me a saying, a good way to remember it. 9 is fine, 8 is hate. So basically, 4 digits is business as usual, roll the dice, pesticides, etc. 5 digits is going to mean one thing. If it begins or ends, I guess begins in this case, but usually it's the end number. But if it begins or ends with 9, it's organic. But what they've done, which I find really suspicious, that it's that one number off that is such an extreme. So 9 is organic, 8 is genetically modified. So what she told me, and this is a great way to remember, is so don't really even worry about how many numbers, but just look at the bar code, and if you see it beginning or usually at the end, if you see a 9, it's fine. If it's 8, it's hate. So 8 isn't good. 8 is genetically modified. And 9 is organic. And if you can't remember any of that, just remember 9. 9 is good. 9 is organic. That's what you really want. So just a little tip I want to share with you, because I just learned about it. And after I learned about it, then that's when my friend told me that saying to help remember. So that's really comes in handy. And sometimes, they get pretty tricky with the codes, especially if it's not produce. But if you really look, you'll still see those 8s and 9s. But they start to shuffle them around. So you can either do more research, or when in doubt, just don't buy it. That's what I do. When in doubt, I just don't buy it. So there's a tip. So let's get back to topic, and let's wrap this up. So everything in our modern day society comes at a massive cost to the planet. We're doing it all wrong. We're plundering the planet. We don't have to. This planet, we can totally live in balance. We can totally do it. There is an abundance. There's enough for everybody. We won't get into all of that. But the fact is, the current system, the money system, the credit system, the food system, the resources, everything that we enjoy is at a is and will come from, and that's the nature of the system. It comes at a major cost to life on this planet. So just keep that in mind. Don't be guilty. Just keep it in mind and let it soak in. And the information, the more you do that, the more the information will start to come to you. And you'll just naturally, slowly, at the pace you're comfortable with, will start making differences. You might stop eating meat. You might change the way you buy products. You might start buying organic. You might, etc., etc. I'm sure I've left out a lot of stuff, but you get the idea. I better wrap this up. So be grateful, of course, and be mindful and grateful that where all this abundance and luxuries come from, that we live in, with all this wonderful stuff. And from there you'll start to be the change. And it's good to know, you should be aware. Be aware of what you're putting in your body. Be aware especially what you're putting back into the world. I haven't driven a car in, some people you have to have a car. But a lot of people, they have cars, they don't need them. They got multiple cars, family. They'll make excuses. You could make excuses. Well, Susan's got piano practice on Thursdays, so we're busy, so she needs a car. Okay, it's your choice, but I'm just saying, sometimes we over-justify, and you'll see families with too many cars, and it's really for convenience. And I can understand, who wants to take a bus and wants to walk, but, you can start to, when you start to realize that the gasoline being put in your car, that's why people are dying in wars in the countries and everything else. And the planet, it's devastating the planet. And it's not a renewable source. And it's not necessary, actually. There's other ways, but it's being suppressed by the system. So you might find yourself taking the bus more, biking, or like me. I naturally, because that's the way I was going, just naturally, now I live in a neighborhood where everything's around me. Everything I need, I was within 10-minute walking distance, anything. And I didn't choose that consciously. The more I just was making these choices and stuff, just that's what aligned. The more I didn't want to have to drive or do certain things, it's just what I needed came to me. And you'll start to see that. And so just by default, I ended up, even when I moved in this neighborhood, I didn't realize. And now, turns out, I've got waterfalls within 10 minutes walking nature. I've got any kind of restaurant or food I want to eat. It's 10 minutes or less away. Some just a minute walk. Organic places. I don't have to, I don't have to have a car at all. So just keep that in mind. Everything that you're doing, especially when it comes to, start buying, you'll notice you'll start, instead of buying regular products, you'll start looking for organic products, biodegradable products that are better for the environment, and keep in mind what you're flushing down the drain, what you're putting in the garbage, what you're composting, what you're dumping on the street, and it'll just slowly start to change. And you should go slow. You should try to change it all night. It's too much pressure. It's too much. So be grateful. You have so much to be grateful for. And I'm just talking about materialistic things. We are actually so abundant beyond that. But I've made other videos on that. But all these things I mentioned actually isn't really the bulk of our abundance. That's just what we focus on in these material shells. But that's actually the least of our abundance. But we are abundant. And materialistically, we're living like kings. Be grateful for it. Don't be too attached to it. Things are going to change. They have to change. They will change one way or the other. So if you can be less attached to it, you'll adapt better. So don't get too attached to all these luxuries. And the more you start to not get attached and consume less and start simplifying, the more, as we all do that, we'll be better to adapt for whatever comes down the pike and whatever changes. So be grateful, be aware. Really, we're talking about awareness. Be mindful of really where it all comes from. But be happy. And don't beat yourself up over it. Love you.